The sky above the outpost turned red without warning. Alarms wailed across the valley. Private Jackson barely had time to grab his pulse rifle before the wall exploded beside him. The blast threw him across the floor. He stood dazed, hearing voices in a language not his own. The alien soldiers moved quickly, gold-plated armor catching the broken sunlight. They didn't look like the brutal invaders he had imagined. They looked royal, beautiful, too elegant for war. But they fired without hesitation. Earth's diplomatic mission to the outer rings had failed. No one knew why. 1 minute, talks were peaceful. The next, a message was broadcast across human colonies: withdraw or burn. Jackson's squad was sent to evacuate research personnel. They ended up in a war zone instead. He took cover behind a collapsed shuttle wing. His comm crackled, then went silent. He was alone. A pair of alien boots landed beside the wreckage. He raised his rifle but froze. She wasn't like the others. Her armor gleamed brighter. Her silver hair framed a sharp but youthful face. Her ears were long and pointed, like the elves from old Earth tales. But it was her eyes that held him still, curious, confused, not full of hate. "Don't shoot," he whispered, though he knew she probably didn't understand. She tilted her head, scanning his face, then slowly lowered her blade. The air between them became heavy with silence. More soldiers approached behind her, weapons drawn. She raised her hand, stopping them with a single command. Her voice was firm, alien, but oddly melodic. She turned back to Jackson, studying him like he was a riddle no one had solved before. "Why did you do that?" he asked, chest heaving. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer and placed 2 fingers lightly on his forehead. Then something odd happened. His translator device, blinking uselessly before, flickered to life. One word came through clearly: "Surrender, Jackson." Grinned, breathing relief and sarcasm in one breath. "Well, you're a lovely way to ask, I'll give you that," he muttered. The alien girl's eyes widened. A sudden pink hue bloomed on her cheeks. Her soldiers tensed, but she didn't move. Instead, she blinked, looked him dead in the eyes, and asked in broken but clear English, "Say lovely again?" Jackson was stunned. He stared, unsure if he just caused a diplomatic miracle or his own execution. She stepped closer again, her expression unreadable, and repeated herself, softer this time. "Say it again, human." The moment broke when gunfire erupted nearby. Her guards turned, defensive. She hesitated, then raised a glowing hand. A beam of golden light surrounded Jackson, lifting him off the ground. He panicked, thinking it was a weapon. But it wasn't painful. It felt like warmth. Before he could understand, they vanished, him included, into the sky above the battlefield, swallowed by the light of an alien ship cloaked in the clouds. The alien vessel was unlike anything Jackson had seen. Its walls pulsed with golden energy, alive in a way no Earthship ever was. The corridors hummed softly beneath his feet, and the air was clean, rich, almost sweet. He followed silently behind the elf-like girl, flanked by her guards. No one spoke. Their golden armor reflected light from the crystalline walls. Jackson felt like a prisoner, but oddly not in danger. Every time he stumbled, the girl turned slightly, making sure he was still with them. Her name, he learned through the translator, was Valera. Commander Valera of the High Sifil Order. She was not just a soldier, but part of a royal warrior caste. Her authority among them was absolute. Jackson didn't understand why she had spared him. The war was clearly real. Other humans had been taken or killed. Yet here he was, walking aboard an enemy ship, watched but not harmed, when they reached a large chamber, shaped like an oval dome. She turned and looked at him again. The guards stayed at the entrance. Only she stepped inside with him. A symbol above the arch glowed as the door sealed. "This is Sanctuary Room," she said, her accent sharp yet clear. "No weapon, no fight, no harm here." Jackson nodded slowly. "All right, so why am I here, Commander Valera?" She walked around him, arms behind her back. "You said lovely," he blinked. "That's what this is about." She tilted her head. "Lovely is word of bond, compliment, human tongue is bold." Unusual, but it made something happen. He remembered the blush. That tiny, unexpected flash of warmth in her face. "You've never been called that before." "No," she replied. Instantly, not by a male, not by an enemy. Not with truth. Jackson sighed and looked around the chamber. There were no chairs, no weapons, just light. So what happens now? She stepped closer. He noticed how tall she really was. Almost his height. Her silver white hair shimmered under the golden glow. Her voice dropped as she said, "Now I decide what you are." He raised an eyebrow. "What I am? Yes, spy, weapon, fool, or what?" Her fingers touched his arm briefly. Or something else. Something human. He laughed softly, not mocking, just confused. "Lady, I'm just a guy trying not to get shot today. That's all I am." She looked at him, long and unblinking. "Why didn't you kill me when you had weapon? I saw your face. You looked curious, not violent. And maybe I just like pretty faces." Her cheeks flushed again. This time it was more visible. She turned away quickly and walked to the far end of the chamber. Do all human soldiers say such things? "Only the brave or the stupid ones," he said. "You'll have to figure out which I am." Valera paced for a moment, hands behind her. "My kind, we do not speak of beauty in war. It is weakness." Yet when you said it, it made me pause. He walked toward her, slowly. "Then maybe that pause means you're more than just a warrior." She looked at him again. "I could end you, with voice. With thought. One word and guards finish what others began. But you didn't, and you still haven't. Why?" She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "Because I wanted to hear it again." He smiled gently. "Lovely." She closed her eyes. The word rippled through her like a song remembered from childhood. When she opened them, they were softer, less guarded. "Say it again." He did, and she didn't flinch. This time she smiled. Just a little. A new kind of tension filled the air. Not fear. Not anger. Something else. Something neither of them had words for yet. Then a chime sounded. A voice echoed from the wall, some alien language Jackson couldn't follow. Valera tensed, her smile fading. "We are summoned." "My father arrives." "Your father?" She nodded. "He is Supreme Commander. He will not understand this." "What?" "That I called you pretty. That you are still alive." The door opened, and the guards reappeared. Valera stepped beside Jackson, her armor shifting with a faint pulse of light. "You will speak only when asked. You are now a subject of judgment." "Great. I've had worse Mondays," Jackson muttered, falling into step beside her. As they walked toward judgment, he noticed her hand brushes once. Not by accident. Not fully on purpose either. Just enough to say one silent thing: "I'm listening." The throne chamber of the Sci-Fi Order was as magnificent as it was terrifying. Towering pillars shaped like silver spears lined both sides. The floor shimmered like still water, yet Jackson's boots made no splash. At the far end stood a raised dais. Upon it sat a figure taller and broader than any alien Jackson had seen. His armor was darker, edged with crimson. A crown of light hovered above his head, orbiting slowly. This was Valera's father, Supreme Commander Velian, Warlord of the Eastern Rings, conqueror of 9 human outposts. And the reason this war had spiraled into bloodshed. Jackson stood still as Valera bowed. Her head remained lowered for several seconds. When she finally rose, her father looked at her, then at Jackson. His face was unreadable, carved from authority and war. "You bring the human here?" he asked, his voice thunder without effort. "Yes." "Father," Valera answered. "I claimed right of sanctuary." He harmed no one. He is mine to present. Velian's eyes narrowed. You dare invoke the bonding rite in a time of war? Jackson didn't understand the term, but he noticed Valera's breath catch. She nodded once. I do. I claim judgment under Code 17, witnessed by flame and honor. A murmur spread through the guards and nobles watching from behind the pillars. Jackson leaned toward her slightly. Hey, I feel like I'm missing something, she whispered. Without turning, you are my guest now. That means you live or die by how I speak. Velian rose from his seat. His shadow stretched long across the glowing floor. Human, do you know why you are still breathing? Jackson cleared his throat. Because your daughter stopped me from dying. Maybe that's reason enough. The Supreme Commander's eyes flickered. You mock, or you are ignorant. She invoked the rite. That means her name is tied to yours. Now, if you fail this moment, her shame will be carved forever. Jackson's smile faded. Then I'll try not to mess this up. Valera stepped forward. He was on the battlefield, but he did not shoot. He called me something foreign. Velian folded his arms. What? She hesitated. Then said it plainly. Lovely. More murmurs. Some gasps. One older alien stumbled back in disbelief. Velian said nothing. His gaze turned sharp. Explain yourself, human. Jackson looked up, straight into the warlord's eyes. She walked toward me, armed, deadly. I saw her. But I didn't see a killer. I saw someone radiant. So I said what felt true. Valera's jaw clenched. She was proud, but nervous. The word had meaning here, deeper than Jackson had guessed. He wasn't just flirting. He had triggered something. Sacred. Velian walked down the steps, each one echoing through the chamber. He stopped just in front of Jackson. Do you believe in beauty? Jackson didn't flinch. Yes, even in war. Especially in war. It's when you need it the most. The warlord stared hard. Then he turned his back and walked away. This human speaks madness. But madness that reveals intent. Valera stepped forward. He should live. Let him return to his kind. No, Velian said. He may not return, but he will not die either. He will learn. Learn what? Velian's voice grew dark. He will train beside us. Understand who we are. Fight if he must. And if he survives, then maybe his words were not weakness. Jackson blinked. So I'm not a prisoner? You are not free either. You are under bonded trial. He looked to Valera. She gave him a small nod. You will live with the Flame Guard. You will sleep in the Hall of Warriors. Eat what they eat. Train as we train. If you fail, you will be exiled. Exiled to where? To the stars, without ship, without armor. Only your voice will echo in the dark. Jackson scratched his head. Great. Sounds like boot camp with extra spice. Valera smiled faintly. You will survive. I will see to it. As they left the chamber, Jackson whispered, This is your version of a date, isn't it? She didn't answer. But her hand brushed his again, and this time it lingered. Asterisk, the Hall of Warriors was not built for humans. The ceilings were higher, the beds firmer, and every training weapon felt heavier than Jackson expected. The air smelled of ash and metal. And the morning started before the first ray of light reached the towers. He woke to horns, not alarms. The warriors lined up with discipline and silence. No shouting, no joking. Just presence. Jackson stood at the end of the row, the only human. Dressed in borrowed armor that didn't quite fit. Valera stood across the training ground, watching. She didn't speak to him that morning. She simply observed. Her gaze was unreadable, like stone and fire trapped behind silver eyes. His instructor, a hulking alien named Drex, growled orders in the old tongue. Jackson's translator struggled but managed to keep up. Push, roll, strike, dodge. Again, again. By midday, he was soaked in sweat and bruises. The others didn't go easy on him. They weren't cruel, but they weren't gentle either. Every blow was a lesson. Every fall, a correction. Jackson refused to quit. Not because of pride, but because Valera hadn't turned away. She watched every move. And every time he stood back up, he noticed her posture straighten. During rest, a younger warrior sat beside him. Her voice was curious. "Why are you still here, human?" He breathed heavily. "Because I said something I meant. And now I have to prove it wasn't weakness." She tilted her head. "You called the commander lovely. That's not a word our kind uses." "Maybe it should be," Jackson replied. "Might save you a few wars." That night, instead of returning to the shared warrior bunks, he was called to a private chamber. Valera stood inside, not in armor but in ceremonial robes woven with gold threads. "You are still breathing," she said with the faintest smile. "Barely," he groaned, sitting on the edge of a stone bench. "Your people hit hard. You moved like wind," she replied. "Awkward wind. But not without courage," he smirked. "So I'm officially awkward, but brave." "Yes, you are also reckless. And strange. But not without charm." Jackson sat up straighter. "Is that your version of a compliment?" She stepped closer. "It is more than that. I read the warrior reports. You did not fall behind. You did not beg for rest. They respect you now. And her voice trailed off. She looked at him, eyes unblinking. "I find myself listening for your voice in the morning. A dangerous habit," he chuckled softly. "Then I guess I should keep saying lovely." She turned away to hide her smile. "You risk too much with your words." He stood and walked closer. "Or maybe your people risk too little. No one has ever told you what they truly saw." "Not until—" "I did." She didn't move as he stepped beside her. "You saw a warrior with a blade. Not a woman with a name." "I saw both," he said. "And I chose to speak to the woman." She closed her eyes. Her breath slowed. "The right you triggered. It binds. In time, if not broken, it grows. Do you want to break it?" She looked at him. No, they stood in silence. Not the kind filled with tension, but the kind that wrapped them in warmth. Then, a loud chime broke the moment. Valera stepped back. "It is time. The Emperor's fleet arrives." "Your presence is requested at the Judgment Hall." Jackson frowned. "Another trial?" "Another test," she said. "This one not of strength, but of truth." He followed her out into the corridor, both of them quiet as the lights shifted blue. Above them, this time, her hand brushed his again. This time he took it. No one stopped them, and no one dared speak. The Judgment Hall had changed. Where once the space had echoed with cold silence and golden light, it now pulsed with the darker presence of the Emperor's guards. Their armor was heavier, marked with blood-colored stripes, and they carried weapons that didn't belong in peace. Jackson stood between two warriors, unbound but surrounded. Valera walked beside him, no longer dressed in ceremonial robes but in full command armor. Her face was unreadable, calm as stone, yet her steps betrayed tension. The Emperor's voice rang out before his figure was even visible. "Bring forth the human who twisted the bonded right." Valera stepped forward first. He did not twist. I invoked it, with full right and awareness. "Let judgment fall on me, if needed." The great door opened. The Emperor emerged. His robes trailed behind him, stitched with silver veins and symbols of conquest. His skin was pale blue, his eyes glowing like twin moons. He descended the steps slowly. He stopped in front of Jackson. "You used words to bind a daughter of the Order, words that changed her blood. Speak carefully now, human." Jackson looked up, calm but alert. "I spoke honestly, that's all. I didn't know your laws. But I won't pretend my words were empty." The Emperor studied him. "You fought in our pits. You trained among warriors. You still live. That alone speaks much." Valera spoke again. He showed strength, not just of body, but of heart and restraint. He could have broken the right. He did not. The Emperor circled them both slowly. "Do you feel for her?" Jackson answered without pause. "Yes, why?" Jackson turned to Valera and then back. "Because she's strong, she listens. She doesn't hide behind power. She gave me more mercy in a war zone than I've seen in any battlefield." Valera's lips parted, but she said nothing. Her eyes, though, said everything. The Emperor turned to her. "Do you feel for him?" She nodded once. "Yes, enough to protect him against my word?" "Yes." Whispers spread through the chamber. The Emperor raised his hand, silencing all. "Then you both accept the next step." "Trial by unity." Valera stiffened. Jackson blinked. "What's that?" The Emperor looked directly at him. "A right older than this throne. Two from opposing bloodlines must stand before the flame of truth. It sees what words do not. It cannot be fooled. If the bond is false, both suffer. If true, both rise." Jackson nodded slowly. "We'll do it." Valera stepped closer. "Are you certain?" He smiled gently. "I called you lovely. I meant it. If that leads us to fire, then so be it." The chamber darkened. A column of golden flame rose from the floor's center. Its edges shimmered like glass, but its heat was real. The guards stepped back. Even the Emperor remained still. Jackson and Valera walked forward together. The flame pulsed as they neared. Then it changed color. Blue at first, then green. Then white. Then it turned golden again and shot upward, vanishing through the ceiling. Silence followed. Then the chamber lights returned. The Emperor looked at both of them, then knelt. Others followed. All warriors, all nobles. Even Valera's father dropped to one knee. Jackson stood confused until Valera whispered, "The flame has spoken. Our bond is truth." They kneel in respect. Jackson looked around, stunned. He was no soldier in chains now, no outsider. He had been judged by something ancient and accepted by a people who once hunted him. The Emperor stood. "From this day, you are no longer outsider. You are bonded of Sci-Fi. You will carry the crest. You will walk under our banner." Jackson turned to Valera. "So does this mean you're stuck with me?" She smiled. "No, it means I chose to be." He laughed once. "Guess I better start learning your language. You already speak the part that matters." "What part?" She leaned closer, voice soft. "The part where you called me lovely." The guards didn't interfere. No voice stopped them. No rule shattered the peace. In a world where war had torn bridges apart, two words had built something stronger, and the fire that nearly destroyed them had become the light that made others kneel. Jackson's new armor felt strange at first. It wasn't metal, but something woven from energy and crystal thread. It shimmered faintly under light, alive like the ship walls, and it adjusted to his body like second skin. The crest of Sci-Fi glowed at his shoulder, a golden triangle wrapped in a halo of silver fire. Warriors who once eyed him with distrust now bowed their heads as he passed. Not out of fear, but from respect earned through fire. Valera stood beside him as they boarded the dropship. Her hair was tied back and her armor gleamed with fresh ceremonial polish. She didn't speak much that morning, neither did he. They both knew what the mission meant. The Emperor had summoned them after the Flame's judgment. Reports had come in. A splinter faction of Valera's people rejected the bond. They saw it as betrayal. Worse, as weakness. And now they were moving toward Earth's borders. If they attack, Jackson said, tightening his gloves, Earth will retaliate. Full force. There won't be any second chances, Valera nodded. Which is why we must reach them first. If we speak before they strike, we still have hope. Hope, Jackson muttered. Funny how that word feels heavier than war sometimes. The dropship took off, engines humming with deep power. Through the window, the stars stretched endlessly. And somewhere beyond, those who hated him were preparing to start something they couldn't stop. They landed on a neutral moon station, known only to high command families. The faction leaders had already arrived. The room they entered was circular, its walls built from compressed lightstone. 10 warlords stood waiting, none bowed, none greeted. Their eyes burned with suspicion. One stepped forward, his voice sharp and filled with disdain. "You bring the human here. The mistake, the shame." Valera stepped ahead of Jackson. "He is no shame. He is my bond, tested by fire, judged by the flame. You question me, you question the right itself." Another warlord spat on the floor. "The flame burns different now. This one brings softness. He speaks beauty when blood must be spilled." Jackson raised his hand slightly. "You think kindness makes us weak, but it takes more strength to hold back than to destroy." The first warlord laughed. "And what will you do, human? Seduce us with words?" "No," Jackson said, "but I'll say this. If you attack Earth, you won't just fight us. You'll fight your own blood. You'll fight her." Valera didn't move. She let his words land like stones. Then she added, "If any of you raise sword against Earth, I will stand in its defense, with him at my side." The silence that followed was louder than any explosion. The warlords looked at each other. One by one, their hands drifted away from their weapons, their eyes narrowed, but not with rage, with calculation. Finally, one stepped forward. A female general with scarred cheeks and violet eyes. "You risk much, Valera, but the flame chose you. We are not so blind we forget the old codes." Another spoke. "We will not strike, for now. But if this bond breaks, our patience ends with it." "Then watch closely," Valera said, "because this bond only grows stronger." As the warlords left, Jackson let out a breath. "I thought they were going to kill us." "They still might," Valera said. "But today we bought time." He looked at her, studying her features, the strength in her stance, the certainty in her words. "You didn't flinch, not once." She smiled. "I had your voice in my ear. That gave me more armor than steel." They walked back to the ship, side by side. This time, her hand didn't just brush his. She held it fully, fingers wrapped around his like they were meant to be there. The crew stood aside as they entered. No one dared interrupt. No one needed to speak. Every soldier aboard that vessel knew what had happened. 2 enemies had become a single symbol. As the ship rose into orbit, Jackson looked at Valera and said, "Lovely still fits you." "More than ever." She turned to him. "Then say it again." "Just once more." He did, and this time her lips met his. The news of the ceasefire reached Earth and the Sci-Fi Empire at the same time. Both sides, still licking their wounds, hesitated but listened. Messages flew across space. Coded, cautious, but no longer filled with threats. Jackson stood before a human admiral, face to face for the first time since he left Earth's battlefield. The admiral's office was cold and metal-lined, nothing like the living ships of Sci-Fi. The air smelled like recycled filters and old fear. "So you're the reason the guns went silent," the admiral said, folding his arms. "And the reason half our diplomatic council is having heart attacks." Jackson stood tall. "I didn't plan it, but I don't regret it. She's one of them," the admiral pressed. "You understand how that looks?" "She's more than them," Jackson said. "She's the one who listened when your men were already pulling triggers. She risked her name, her people, for peace. For me," the admiral exhaled, leaning back. "There's a storm coming. Not everyone on Earth believes in second chances. You'll be called traitor by some, fool by others. I don't care," Jackson said. "Call me what they want. But I saw more humanity in her eyes than I saw in my own squad's last orders." Long silence passed. Then the admiral tapped a console. "You're being reassigned, not as a soldier, as a bridge between them and us." Jackson nodded slowly. "I can live with that. Valera waited at the docking bay. Her armor was gone. She wore a long robe made of silver threads wrapped at the waist, her hair loose across her shoulders. The other humans kept their distance. She didn't seem to care. Jackson walked toward her. "They're not thrilled I'm still breathing. Neither are many of mine," she replied. "Yet here we stand." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They're sending me to the Joint Peace Assembly. Earth wants me to speak, represent the bond." Her eyes softened. "Then I will stand beside you. As your equal, you won't." "Be safe," he said. "Words can cut deeper than war, especially when spoken in front of those who fear truth." "I faced the flame," she said. "I'll face this too." They boarded the diplomatic vessel together. It was a joint build, half human steel, half Sci-Fi crystal. A union in shape and spirit. Inside, soldiers from both sides stared as they passed. Some whispered, some bowed, some glared. In the central chamber, rows of leaders sat in silence as the doors opened. Jackson walked forward alone at first. Valera joined him midway. Not a step behind, not in shadow. They stood shoulder to shoulder at the center. The Earth chairwoman stood. "You are here as proof of a claim. A human and an alien, bonded, not by contract, but by choice." Jackson nodded. "Yes, do you understand what that bond means for us?" "It means we've run out of excuses," Jackson replied. "We can't hide behind fear anymore. Not when we know each other's voices, faces, hearts." A Sci-Fi elder stood. His robes were heavy with honor bands. "Do you offer your truth before all?" "I do," Jackson said. "And so does she." Valera spoke next. "We were taught that emotion was weakness, that softness opens doors for blades. But this human gave me a word that built more than any wall." "Which word?" "Lovely," she said. "He gave it with no demand, no command. Only truth, and I accepted it." Whispers followed, some skeptical, some stunned, others thoughtful. The room held stillness for a moment. Then the chairwoman lifted a ceremonial tablet. "By this bond, Earth recognizes the right and grants standing to both parties as ambassadors of peace." The Sci-Fi elder did the same. "And we, the old blood, accept the voice of the flame. Let this bond be carved in time." As the ceremony ended, Jackson reached for Valera's hand again. She didn't hesitate. Her fingers closed around his with certainty. They walked out of the hall not as enemies, not even as allies. They walked out as proof that one word spoken without agenda could shift the weight of war, and that when two hearts meet without armor, even galaxies must pause. Months passed after the bond was made public. Across the stars, both human and Sci-Fi worlds watched carefully. Some waited for the bond to break. Others hoped it would hold. But no one could deny the effect it had on both empires. Trade began again, slowly. The war machines were not dismantled, but they stopped roaring. Soldiers returned to their homes. Families looked towards stars they once feared. And somewhere in between, a human and an alien woman lived under the same roof. The house was built on neutral land. Not Earth, not Sci-Fi. A quiet moon with breathable air and golden skies. Jackson spent his mornings repairing old tech salvaged from both sides. Valera spent hers studying Earth's stories, her favorite being poetry. "You humans write of love like it's a weapon," she said once, flipping through a worn book. "Wounds made by words, bleeding hearts." "It's all very dramatic," Jackson grinned. "That's what happens when you give a poet too much wine." She pointed at a page. "This one says love is fire. Is that what you gave me when you called me lovely?" He leaned back in his chair. "Maybe, but you gave it back tenfold when you believed me." Her gaze softened, and she turned the page slowly. "I used to fear words. Now I wait for them." The peace they built was not without challenges. Threats still came. Letters, warnings, even attempts on their lives, but each time they stood firm. Not with violence, with presence, with truth. Jackson was invited to speak again, this time at a human academy. The young cadet sat wide-eyed as he spoke about war, love, and what it meant to speak softly in a world made of metal. Sometimes, he said, the strongest thing you can do is see someone not as an enemy, but as someone who simply hasn't heard the right word yet. When asked if he still wore the Sci-Fi crest, he lifted his sleeve to reveal it inked into his skin. A permanent mark, a choice he made freely. One cadet asked why. Because I didn't just join a people, Jackson said. I joined someone. And she changed everything. Valera wasn't. At the speech, she had stayed behind that day, preparing something of her own. Jackson returned to find her in the field behind their house, planting something in the soil. What is that? He asked, stepping beside her. A flower from my world, she said. It only blooms once every 50 years. But when it does, it glows, just like the flame. He knelt beside her. Why plant it now? She looked at him with a calm smile. Because I want to see it bloom. And I plan to be here when it does. They sat in the grass, quiet for a while. The stars above were visible even in daylight on that moon. Soft wind carried the scent of something sweet through the air. A peace few had known before them. Jackson turned to her. You remember that moment? When I first said it? Valera smiled. I remember every sound of it. You didn't even look at me when you said it. You were half bleeding and half confused. True, he laughed. I almost said it by accident. But it wasn't, she said. It was the first honest thing I'd ever heard in the middle of battle. He looked into her eyes. Lovely. That word still belongs to you. She leaned closer. Then say it again, one last time, as yours, not as a soldier. Not as a symbol. Just as you, he did. Without hesitation, without fear. He said it with everything he was. And she heard it. As more than sound. She heard it as truth. That night they watched the stars together. No guards, no war drums, no politics. Just two souls who had once stood on opposite ends of a battlefield and chose a different path. And in the field behind them, the flower pulsed. Faintly, not yet bloomed, but alive, waiting. Like hope wrapped in petals. It would bloom one day, just like they did.